doubt, confusion, raising consciousness, or lowering it, and continued emotionality, all part of this cycle of the human design weather for March 1st to 7th, 2025. Hello there. I'm Margot Fraser, your guide through the cosmic weather. As a certified human design professional and intuitive coach, I'm on a mission to help you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. In this podcast, Human Design, Weather or Not, we explore the conditioning influences of the planetary motions, the transit field. You can't avoid the conditioning pressures. You'll likely notice their effects playing out around you, but rather than you reacting and being pulled off track, this awareness will empower you to navigate the cycle, staying true to your authentic nature and take advantage of the opportunities when correct for you. All right, let's get to the weather for this cycle. This cycle begins March 1st at 10:22 a.m. and it goes until March 7th at 1:04 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. In universal time coordinates, the start is March 1st at 5:22 p.m. and it goes until March 7th at 8:04 a.m. So remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when this cycle starts and ends for you. We always start with the Sun Earth activations because that's 70% of the conditioning field. This cycle, both the Sun and Earth have moved into the head center, into head center gates. The head center is the top triangle in the chart, in the body graph, and it's a pressure center. It brings the pressure to think. You can also call this inspiration. The three gates of the head center bring the pressure to mentally make sense of experiences, to know, and to understand patterns. So we have two of these being activated by the transit field, by these Sun Earth positions. The Sun has moved into gate 63, the trait of doubt, which is part of the collective logic circuitry. Collective traits always bring a theme of impersonal sharing. Logic is about understanding and finding the patterns to carry us into the future. What's the right formula? So it's the starting place for the scientific mind, your ability to investigate patterns and come up with new theories backed by details and facts. Why do we want to know about patterns? Because we humans love reliability and the stability that that brings. If I do A, B, C, I'm going to get X result every time. That would be the ideal. All I need to do now is follow the formula. Well, the thing about patterns is that they do change over time. Some mutation comes through out of the individual circuitry and we have to change the pattern. So there's no way that is the way forever. If you're here and listening to something from a human design perspective, you know it's all about individuating, differentiation, living your unique design and bringing your unique perspective. So a pattern that works for some people may not work for you. That, something's not working here brings the doubt, the pressure to look into it further, to investigate. The pressure brings the questions that lead to investigating. As you follow this mental process into the ajna from the head center, the ajna is your mental awareness center. This is really where all the thinking, conceptualizing, analyzing, and so on is occurring. Your investigation may reveal that, oh, that pattern is actually really a good one. Okay, we can just relax now, let it go. Or, nope, I don't think this is working. And then your mind will start playing with what might be a better pattern. That's what's in gate 4, the gate of answers, the gate of coming up with potential solutions, only potentials at this point, and then forming from all those potentials the possible opinion, the theory in gate 17. And then that's really only opinion at this point because the real life experimenting hasn't happened yet. This is just all the stuff that the mind is going through, going over and over and testing mentally whether this could work or not. It still has to be tried, tested, and proven in real life through experimentation and that it actually works for the majority of the collective. This is collective circuitry. And then in gate 62, in the throat center, the end of this mental logic process, it's where that opinion, that theory can be expressed, backed up by all the details and the facts. So at the start of this process, we have this gate 63, this gate of doubt. And its keynote says, in the spiral of life, all endings are beginnings. In other words, the end of one pattern is the start of a new one. If you have this gate in your own design, it's really important that everything that you doubt, you investigate and prove to yourself whether it's working or not, whether it's correct or not. The potential opportunities that come in with this activation is to look at any plans that you have and get a sense of whether they're going to work. Logic is all about planning, right? Planning for the future. You may find that you're able to ask really good questions about anything that you doubt. And that can really inspire someone else to get into their investigative process. The caution here, this pressure of doubt can end up being turned by your not self mind onto yourself as self doubt. So watch that. When you doubt yourself, what happens? You stop trusting yourself. You stop trusting your own strategy and authority. You hand your power over to others. So watch that you're not taking what someone else says as fact if you haven't done your own fact checking. Also, others may ask questions or talk about what they're doubting, impersonal sharing, and you may feel like you have to come up with answers and respond in some way. Remember that just because the pressure is there, just because in this case the questions are coming in, doesn't mean that you have to do anything about it unless your strategy and authority is giving you that yes. It's okay to say, I don't know. All right. So expect increased doubt to be expressed around you in this cycle. The Earth has moved into gate 64, the trait of confusion. Yes. Doubt and confusion. What a pair, right? So this is also part of the collective, but now on the abstract experiential side of the circuitry. So impersonal sharing, it's collective, and the abstract thought process is all about making sense of the past, making sense of experiences. And in that making sense process, we may have some real ahas that may lead to new ideas and the formation of what we believe about something. No facts here. It's just based on experience. And then eventually we articulate that out in gate 56 in the throat center as stories, stimulating stories, preferably. It all starts with confusion. So when we've just had an experience or taken something in mentally, it's about trying to figure out where does this fit in the movie of my life? What's of value in here and what's not? And to move from confusion to the ahas, to the realizations, that does take time. it can be very difficult to determine, like, what was the point of that. There can be surface level stuff that comes faster, but the real depth, the real lessons and wisdom, it does take time to process that, to get that. So the keynote here says transition, like birth, requires determined strength for the passage through. Transition speaks to this process of going from confusion to the realization. This trait is one that stores visual memory, but it's a jumble. It's these memories aren't stored in order, these visual clips of the experience. So there's confusion. And out of that confusion, in that making sense process, you can mentally explore many things, right? The stories in your head. It takes time. The abstract circuitry is generally about what is it to be in this human experience of life. If we look at that at a macro level, what is it about? The potential opportunities that come with this, out of any confusion that comes in, you may ask questions where other people's responses, like, I'm really confused about whatever it is. And then someone says, oh, blah, 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 right? So out of the responses, it might help you move through it, or just in articulating the question or questions that you have, it's going to start within your own process, that moving forward. For some of you, depending on your design, just hearing yourself speak the confusion starts moving things along. And you may realize that the confusion is actually not something you need to put your attention on. It's not something that's of value to you. I'm confused about this, but you know what? Who cares whether I make sense of this or not? There's nothing there of value. All right. The caution here is it can be easy to go into mental anxiety out of the confusion. There could be a sense that you're never going to find the point in that confusion. Or you might take hasty action when you think you've had the aha, you think you've got the point, but you actually don't yet. You jump too quickly, you didn't get the full depth, and that can just eventually lead to more confusion. When we look at these two gates together, these sun earth positions, doubt and confusion, lots of questions. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. These questions can raise consciousness, right? When we ask questions, oh, yeah, how does that work? Or is that really working? Or where's that confusion coming from? But if we're not going through our own process using our own strategy and authority, investigating what's of value, and taking that processing time, letting go of what's not of value, we can have the opposite. In other words, a lowering of consciousness. I don't want to be confused. Yeah, that seems to be working. I'm not going to investigate it. I'm just going to accept that. And it might be leading you right off track, right? Or grabbing onto what someone else says as fact or their beliefs as your own. So, always things to watch with these traits here. So do your best not to be afraid of these pressures of confusion and doubt. They can bring some mental anxiety. Remember that your decision-making process is through your strategy and authority. It's not in your head, it's in your body. So there could be a tendency this cycle to really get caught up in the head. Take a breath, bring the energy down, check in with your own strategy and authority. Is this something to really put my energy into? All right, let's move into looking at the channels being created in this cycle. When the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't have it already in their chart is receiving the activation of the related traits and qualities. So there's a big impact as a result. We have our long-term channel we've been tracking since the middle of February. It came in on February 11th. It's going to be with us until April 7th. We have Jupiter sitting in gate 35, the trait of progress and change in the throat center. And it's connecting to its electromagnetic gate 36, the gate of crisis, in the emotional center. That's being activated by the north node of the moon. This is creating the channel of transitoriness, a design of a jack of all trades. The rule of thumb with the experiential circuitry, or one of the rules of thumb, is to never repeat an experience. Now, been there, done that, don't need to do that again. Got the experience, bring me something new. I want a different experience now. Hence the transitoriness. We have the emotional center connecting to the throat center. The emotional center is a motor that generates the emotional wave, the ups and downs of emotions. And it's also our emotional awareness. So it's an awareness center. At gate 36, this is really where, in the feeling, emotional experience, that the rubber meets the road. It's like entering into the experience. The other part of the circuitry that connects to it is more about fantasizing about what experience you could have and narrowing that down to the one you really desire. But here it's like, okay, we're going into it. And that's the crisis. The crisis is that you're a novice. You don't have the experience yet. So there can be a sense of inadequacy here. Can I really get to the other side? I don't have the experience. I'm a novice. Okay. So watch for that. So eventually, out of this pressure, if it's correct for you, yep, enter into the experience. This energy is going to help you to move through it. Come out at that gate 35 in the throat center, where you can talk about the progress, the change that occurred. It's the voice of I feel. And most often, I feel like a change. It's also the voice of I'm bored. I'm done with that experience. There's nothing else new coming in right now. I'm bored. All right. Since most of the world is not self, you may see a lot of people jumping into new experiences under the pressure of the transit field. Another rule of thumb for the experiential circuitry is no expectations. If it's really correct for you to go into it, drop the expectations, surrender to the experience, and whatever it brings. There's going to be ups and downs within it because this is driven through the emotional system. So it's not all rainbows and unicorns. There's going to be ups and downs before you come out the other end. If you have expectations, which again, most people are not self, they're going to have expectations about what they think the outcome should be. And so the wave of emotionality, this is like the ocean wave that builds up and then comes crashing down in disappointment when those expectations aren't met. And there may also be one of the other things you may see with this pressure is people making emotional decisions in the highs and lows of the wave instead of waiting to get clarity, ensuring that you're at neutral. Just because the pressure's there doesn't mean you react to it unless it is correct for you according to your strategy and authority. So buckle in, keep those surfboards out to ride the emotional waves. I've been talking about that the last few cycles. About 50% of you do not have that emotional center defined in your chart. That triangle to the lower right area will be white. That means that it's not your decision-making authority. It means that you take in and amplify the emotional energy in this transit field about 200%. So you got to really watch that you're not making emotional decisions. If it is correct for you, again, these frequencies are going to help you move through that experience and bring the confidence that you really can move through it. We have 4 channels being created by the transits of the moon, which means that they're just tasters. We're just getting a little sample of these particular channel themes because the moon only stays activating a trait, a gate, for about 10 to 11 hours, give or take. So I'll just briefly go through each of these. March 2nd at 3:23 a.m. until 12:32 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Universal Time, that's March 2nd at 10:23 a.m. until 7:32 p.m. We have the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first. With the moon moving into gate 51, the trait of shock, connecting with its electromagnetic Neptune's position. Oh, and we have Mercury there too in gate 25, the trait of the spirit of the self. It's also the trait of innocence and universal love. It's a trait that's part of the individual circuitry, which is all about mutation, bringing through something new through a pulse of knowing. And that can be very empowering. It's connecting the ego center, the willpower center, the heart center with the G center, just the letter G, that diamond in the center of the chart. This is a channel that brings the pressure to stretch yourself, to get out of your comfort zone and test the unknown waters, making that leap into the void, into the unknown. It brings the opportunity to foster untapped potentials of yourself, to go through things that might be shocking, adapt, and come out the other side, to then feel more empowered and more centered within yourself. This is part of the centering circuitry. The caution is that instead of being competitive with yourself, that there's just this general egoic competitiveness. People taking risks to try to prove that they're brave, that can often end badly or in humiliation. So, yes, brings a little spirit of um, competitive that might not always be healthy. All right, next on March 2nd at 12:32 p.m. until 9:42 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. UTC, that's March 2nd at 7:32 p.m., going until March 3rd at 2:42 a.m. We have the moon moving into gate 42, the trait of completion and growth. That's connecting with Mars' position in gate 53, the trait of beginnings. This creates the channel of maturation, a design of balance development. It's connecting the motor and pressure center of the root with its adrenalized drive to the sacral center, the motor that generates life force energy. So it's very energetic, this particular channel. It's part of the collective abstract circuitry, sharing lessons and wisdoms of experience so that we don't have to start from scratch each time. If you have this in your own chart, it impacts everything else in your chart, and you'll naturally go through cycles of things, beginnings, middles, and ends. That's just part of your life way. This brings a pressure to move through a new experiential cycle, to start something new, something that you can put your vital energy into and move through the next step along the journey to bring something to completion. The caution is to not allow the mind to control the process instead of your strategy and authority. If so, you can end up moving into something or completing on something at the wrong time or that's not correct for you. No expectations again. We've already talked about that with the experiential circuitry. You just have to surrender to whatever it may bring. March 6th at 10:39 a.m. until 8:29 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. UTC, that's March 6th at 5:32 p.m. until March 7th at 3:29 a.m. The moon is moving into gate 45, the trait of the gatherer in the throat center, connecting with gate 22, Venus position in the heart ego center, willpower center. So this creates the channel of the money line, a design of a materialist. This is the tribal leadership channel where energy is exchanged for matter, resources, and back again. 45 is the voice of the king, the queen, the CEO. It's the only voice of the tribe in the throat center. Every other circuitry has multiple voices. The tribe has one. The tribal traits bring a theme of mutual support, having support or not. So any sensitivity around that's going to be heightened in this particular time period. This is a channel that's really focused on resources and what you can control or not. It's the voice of I have, we need, don't need, potential opportunities here to provide education to those that you support so that the whole family, community, tribe can rise up together, being generous with resources that you do have, putting resources into order and using your willpower to do that. The cautions, well, it could have you take a do it yourself kind of attitude. This full channel is very much, do it yourself. And that might not be correct for you if you don't have this full channel in your own design. You might buy things that you can't afford out of the ego nature of this channel rather than what you really need. There could be a tendency to be over controlling, especially if you don't naturally have gate 21 in your own design. That's the gate of the hunter, huntress, the gate of control. Window shopping might be a better way to use this energy if you don't really have the currency to exchange for material goods that you'd like to have. March 6th at 8:29 p.m. until March 7th at 6:23 a.m., which actually takes us into the next cycle. That's Mountain Standard Time. UTC, it'll be March 7th at 3:29 a.m. Again, into the next cycle to 1:23 p.m. We have the moon now moving into gate 12, connecting with gate 22 and creating the channel of openness. Gate 12 in the throat center is the trait of caution or incaution. And the electromagnetic gate 22 is the gate of grace or disgrace in the emotional center. That's being activated by Saturn's position. This is part of the individual circuitry again, mutation, something new wants to bring through, knowing and empowerment. The channel brings a pressure to be socially open or socially closed. It can be moody, it can be passionate, it can be romantic or not. It can close off, as I mentioned. It's the only truly social channel in the individual circuitry. It brings this chameleon quality to the freakiness, let's say, of the individual that allows it to be accepted by the tribe and by the collective in a greater way, so that that opens them up to allowing that mutation to come through this channel. More chance that the tribe and the collective will take it up. The individual circuitry only brings through a spark. It takes the tribe or the collective taking it up to turn it into a fire that spreads. It can bring real grace and politeness to interactions and a built-in cautiousness in expression from knowing that there are times you can sense into it that the tribe and the collective, they're not ready to accept the mutation right now. So better to just keep that to myself. Keep that mutation back until the timing is correct, according to strategy and authority. On the other side, there can be a rudeness and aggressiveness, disgrace in interactions that comes through this channel and its qualities, and incautiousness in expression, just kind of splattering one's moods all over the place. It's a channel of making music together, literally and romantically. It can be fickle. It operates in a pulse. It can turn on a dime. It's very, very acoustic and very attuned to the pitch and quality of someone's voice or of music. So it can be very picky that way. There'll be certain voices where the tone, the frequency is just like, oh, no, I can't stand that voice or I can't stand that music. The opportunity is the possibility of bringing your unique expression to social interactions that does shift the way those interactions is occurring, does bring through something new, and to be open to others in a graceful way. The caution is that if this brings a pulse down in mood, you may just want to withdraw and be more socially close rather than bringing that bad mood, so to speak, to a social situation. There can be emotional volatility that comes through this trait as well. We've got emotions going right up to the throat center, right next to our channel of transitoriness that also has emotions going right up to the throat center. All right. This brings us to our long term transits. The long term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for a longer period of time, years in some cases. So your not self mind could start to think they're part of you, even when they're not in your own design. We still have that emotionality here with that pressure to enter into a new experience that may not be correct for you if you don't follow your strategy and authority with that channel of transitoriness. We've discussed that. We've got that gate 35 in the throat center. It's moved into line 2. So the 6 lines are just different ways that that particular quality expresses itself. And the second line is called creative block. So there may be a sense of being blocked creatively and out of the pressure of this transit, taking hasty action rather than understanding this is emotional. Creativity through here rises and falls with the emotional wave. That's just the way that it naturally operates. You just have to have patience. There can be desire to have experiences with others that are mutually supportive. And gate 22 may want to bring some romance to relationships, some passion. It could bring individual interaction that could open up others socially, or could be impatient, disgraceful, and create embarrassing social situations. These are all ways these pressures could play out. There could be a sense of feeling like you want to change in a relationship that could create conflict and friction with gate 6 activating that trait, conflict and friction that requires peacekeeping. It's sitting in line 6 there, or there could be an inability to bring harmony. Just a caution that you make any decisions. I repeat it all the time, right? But can't help myself from your own strategy and authority rather than the pressures of this transit field. Just to touch on the long term transits that are not in the emotional center, gate 23, Uranus position, the trait of assimilation in the throat center brings the potential for unique and unusual expression that could shift perspectives. It's individual, it wants to bring through something mutative, and Uranus brings through an unusual nature. It's moved into line 6 now, though, which means that there will likely be a reluctance to bring through that unique expression unless you can see that it would really have the impact that you want Line 6 always has an overview of the whole circuitry, and unless it can truly bring the change, it's probably just going to stay quiet. Neptune sitting in gate 25, that individual trait of innocence, the spirit of the self, universal love, or the polarity. Neptune's watery nature can make it difficult to discern the selflessness in gate 25 from selfishness. It's pointing to that gate of shock in the heart center, the ego center. So we could be exposed to shocks that challenge your individual spirit and sense of who you are. Can you maintain your innocence and spirit of universal love through those shocks? Pluto in gate 41, the trait of contraction and decrease in the abstract experiential circuitry. This is the gate of daydreaming and fantasizing about the next experience that you'd like to have down in the root center. The potential opportunity, if it's correct for you, is to engage the imagination in what you'd like to create. At the same time, you will need to eventually narrow that down. The caution is that not every fantasy is meant to be brought into reality. So watch that you're not setting expectations there. What's really reasonable to bring into fruition? That's really the root of this trait. Remember that any of these traits that you don't have in your own design, it's just pressure from the transit field. You can observe it playing out around you. You can learn from it. You might feel the pressure within you, but whether there's actually something for you to do with it, again, according to your own strategy and authority, rather than being run or puppeted by the conditioning field. That brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. And if you're new to human design and you just want to understand the basics of the chart, the body graph a bit more at a high level, what's the red and the black about, the different geometric shapes, a bit of background on human design, you can grab my free human design basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human hyphen design. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would be very grateful if you could give it a like and perhaps subscribe. All right, let's continue to keep those surfboards out to ride those emotional waves. Be aware of the pressures for change. With those sun earth positions in the head center, there could be a real tendency to get caught up in anxiety over confusion and doubt. And it might be a bit harder to bring your energy out of your mind and down into your body for decision making. So be observant of your mind. Watch any shift in that doubt, looking outward at the patterns to inward, doubting yourself. Let that go. There could be some great questions that come through you or that you are asked. Don't feel in any rush to answer them, though. These processes do all take time. All right. Well, have a great cycle. Be kind to one another, and may you know, love, and live the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.